Hey gang, this is John Newton, Snap-on John 100, and this is part 5. And I apologize ahead of time for any distractions. I'm doing this in my backyard because I've got so much material here that I didn't want to hike around with it. So I'm going to be I'm going to be here for part of it, and then the next I'm going to take a break and go to hike in the woods, and I'll be creating a fire with one of the sets that I've made, or more, maybe more than one. But so I'll be utilizing that. What I'm going to do is get as far along here in preparing some sets and see if I can get some embers. Stay with me. Okay. The little quiz I had was, what was the leaf that I showed in part 2, and that was a basswood, and the first person to identify that was Dragon Star 3121976. So if you will send me your mailing address, I'm going to send out a let's see here, I'm going to be sending out a standard bearing block to you to try out. Hopefully you're somebody that's interested in working, playing with bow drill fires. Alright, now I'm going to continue on with part 5 as we're continuing on with creating the sets and processing it. We've already collected our wood, and now we're ready to start cutting it and processing it. Now, this is the piece of cedar, and what we're going to do is we're going to split this down a little bit more. And see what we can come up with. Just going to split it right here. Okay, we can use either piece. This one right here needs further processing because it's a little thick, but I'm going to hang on to that. I'm just going to use this one. So now all I need to do is, I think I'll try this. This is a Kershaw Skyline. Made in the United States. It's got G10 handles and about a 3-inch blade or less. It's a super nice knife, especially for the price. Alright, so I'm just gonna shave this down a little bit. Okay, I pretty much have a straight side here, so all I need to do is just create a divot. And so this hearth board is already set, and now I've got to find the other piece, which I don't see it here. Well, what I'll do is I'll use this spindle. This is basswood, but I'll see if I can locate that one piece that I had. But what you do with this one is, this one's one of the ones that I said is already thin enough. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to remove the bark here from both ends. And then point both ends. One with a gradual taper and one with a steep taper. The steep tapered one is going to be the one that creates the most friction, and that's where the heat is. You want to direct in there. Okay. I'm going to take more of this bark off so I can see. This one's got a little bit of a curve to it. So I'm I'm going to try to see if I can carve some of that away. That's pretty good. Okay, so now I'm just going to put a gradual taper on this end. So you start back a lot farther. This is going to be the one that looks more like a pencil, sharpened pencil. And you keep, what you want to do is you want to keep looking at it so you get the very tip end along the center axis of where it's going to spin so that it doesn't wobble, or you minimize the wobble. So that's what I'm doing now, is I'm just eyeballing it and spinning it in my hand to see where more material needs to come off. The other way you can do it is you can look just straight down on it, from like aim your eye straight in the center and make sure that the very tip end is centered in the piece of wood. I do kind of both methods. Alright, that's pointed enough. Okay, now this end, I'm just going to facet. Let's start like this. So I just kind of spin it around and cut chunks off. Trying to be aware of lining both tips up, so you want to try to keep them in line. This is a transfer of energy, so you want to be as efficient as possible, and you don't want to waste any energy, so you want to not dissipate any in wobbling and that kind of thing. You want everything straight up and down so that all your energy goes into the smallest point, or is focused as much as possible. See how I'm doing this? I'm just trying to stay towards the end so that I have the most blunted off point, so it's a very steep taper. I'm trying to make sure I keep it centered. Okay, this is about good. You just want it a small enough tip that'll fit into the little notch you're going to create. Okay, so the next step, I'm going to go ahead and burn this in. So I'm going to use, this is the top, this is going to be the bottom and the top here, this is going to be the front edge. So the way let me get here where you can see, I make this about 1.5 widths in. So I start with, if you can see this, I start with just like this, and then I visualize where that is, and then I move over like that. That's where I'm going to make my mark. And you want to make sure that when you're drilling a hole or doing like this, that you do not pick this up and do this with your hand or your leg or anything. Put it either on a stump, up against a tree, or anything like that. You always be cognizant of if your knife would slip or this would crack and you went through it. You don't want it going into your leg or hand or anything like that. Okay. So next, I'm going to try to burn this in. So I'm going to take that standard bearing block, and I'm going to move this out of the way, so stay with me. Okay, so now I'm going to attempt to seat this. So once again, loading the bow. This is the end that's going to be down, so you come up through and then just twist it like this. I lock the bow on my leg and just take both ends of the spindle and turn it. Okay. So we're all set. See, okay. I can't see here. Okay. Yep, good. Okay. Alright. Take it slow first. Make sure you don't jump out. Okay, check that out. So now we've got the start of our set. What we're going to do next is, I like to use a small saw. And this is a Leatherman 300 super tool. No, it's just the super tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the very center of this, right there, and then I'm just going to go straight out. And so I'm going to cut through, not quite to the center, but almost to the center of the bottom of that divot. Okay. So, okay, good. You can see all this. This is how I create mine. You can use a knife for the whole thing, but I like using a saw for this part. I start it with a saw anyway, and then finish it with a knife. That's it. If you carry one, you don't have to. I always carry one. My pocket knives always have saws on them. The Swiss Army knives, I always carry a Swiss Army knife in my pocket for one, and that's how I determine which one I'm going to buy, is it has to have a saw. Okay. There's the notch, and now I'm going to take the front end and I'm going to just chamfer it across here and here, make it sort of look like a teepee. You do that to increase the airflow and gives more space for the dust, wood dust, to develop and build up underneath there. So this cut is just kind of crude. But you can actually cut down and then you twist your saw blade and kind of pop that piece out. Which I'm going to use my knife. I don't really like doing that with my... Okay. That's good for the saw. Okay, now I'm going to cut those pieces out. That's what I was talking about, chamfering it. and then I just come into this on each side of that saw cut and start widening it out. And you can make this notch a V notch that's 1/8 of a pie shape, or what I typically do is just a U-shaped notch, and mine's about 1/4 of an inch. If it's too narrow, you're going to end up with a lot of smoke, and the coal won't develop. And then you just look at it, and it's widen the notch a little bit. You want the notch as wide as you can get it, except for you don't want it so wide that the tips, these corners, break off, and then the spindle won't stay in the hole, and so you have to start all over again. So that's the controlling factor of width. The maximum width is you don't want the spindle jumping out. You also want to try to make the sides smooth so that the dust smoothly falls through the notch and doesn't hang up. Because if it hangs up very much, then that's when you starve it for oxygen. Okay. There's mine. Alright, now we'll see if that's wide enough. It probably is, but I'm not sure. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go for an ember now just to test it out. And I have to pull out my leather. There we go. Now we'll try see if we can get an ember. You notice I make sure that my instep is just about an inch or two away from where the hole is. And what that does is when you lock your hand and wrist where you're supposed to on your shin, that puts that spindle exactly in the right spot and perpendicular. That's why foot placement's important. Okay, here we go. There you go, ember number 1, created with a cedar, looked like a cedar shake, but it's a piece of cedar that split off from the tree, so I didn't have to do much pounding on it. And a thinner stick of basswood so that I didn't have to split or carve on it. So this was the simplest way of making a set. Okay, that worked right there. So with that out of the way, we're going to try something else, and I'm going to try the box elder. Box elder maple. Now for this one I'm using the blackbird. Okay. Let's get this shaved down flatter. There's a knot there, so I'm going to use this end. Okay, and then I'll just smooth off. Let's carve this off so it's a little more flat. Alright. There we go. Now I'm going to use this top piece right here. This is going to be my front edge. Okay, so that's ready. Now the other piece is this one. So I'm going to make the spindle out of this piece right here. So get rid of this. Get rid of these. Okay. Okay, get it right here at this piece. Alright, there's that one, and right about here. Okay, so now I'm going to point both ends. I let the girls out, and we might have a cameo appearance if we're lucky. Alright, that's probably good enough. I'm not going for beauty on these, I'm just trying to get what would work the best. So now I got to try to get crazy gals are out here eating the wood chips just off camera. You can see this wood, you can tell just by the way it cuts, it's harder than the other. Okay. It's almost ready. And this point is just about there. That looks like that'll work. Okay, so now we'll try to seat this with the box elder. That's the one that has a real pretty red heartwood right in the center of it.
I'm leaving now.
All right, stay with me. Okay, now we're going to see if we can seat this one. This is the front edge, so same thing applies. This is a lot thicker. So I'm just going to go to the center of this piece, and it's got a major point on the end of it, so I'm just going to use that as my point to mark it. And then that's what I love about spear points. They are perfect for a drill. And this is one I have not used yet, but box elder is like a weed almost. It's so prevalent everywhere. All right. And if your notch is too far from the edge you want, you can just bring it down by cutting on it more. Because you don't want it too far away, or once again it's harder to get the oxygen there. Okay, so that looks like that'll work okay. So let's try to get this one. This might be too fat for my string. I might have to adjust my string. Not sure. No, I got it. It's like a giant Churchill-sized cigar. Okay. This is typically thicker than I want. I would probably cut this down a little more. Okay. There's burned in. Now we're ready to create the notch in it. This is looking like I might as well just put it on this other side. So I'll just smooth this off a little bit. And now I'm just going to use this side. Doesn't even matter really. That's pretty centered. Okay. My saw out. Now I'm going to try my Swiss Army knife saw. Okay. Go to the center of the black spot and move straight out from it. There we go. Okay. Now once again, you want to chamfer it. Okay. Let's finish this off. Now what I'm doing is I'm just enlarging that sawed area to about 1/4 of an inch, smoothing the sides. And this. Okay, and we'll see how this works. There's my notch. There's the chamfer in the front. You can see that. Okay, and now we're gonna see if we can go for another ember. Let's make sure you can see okay. Put it right here. Right, load, go up through, and twist. There we go. All right. Now this is harder than basswood and cedar, so I can tell by the way it cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I stay with it a little longer, and might need a little more downward pressure. While we had an ember and it went out. Okay, so we just keep that dust and stay with it. I'm gonna make my notch a little wider. Like I said before, if it goes out or you just get a lot of smoke, that looked like it was gonna be fantastic because all the smoke, it didn't get enough air. Because remember the triangle of fire: heat, fuel, and oxygen. And with a bow drill, most of the time it's oxygen problems. Okay. Let's try it again. And if this spindle is trying to migrate to where it might jump out of the notch, so I just bring my whole knee forward and angle it back a little bit. Okay. As you can see, we got a huge pile. That is, and you can tell by my breathing, that's harder to do than basswood. Now you know why. The softer the wood, the easier it is. So if you can find it, use the softest wood. Okay, there's that one. Now, I've shown you both examples. I've shown you the examples of using a twig, stripping the bark off and using it like it is. Well, that's what I did with the this one too. And the example also of using a piece that you find from a blowdown. This was already split. I tore it off, and then I split it again and created my hearth board out of this. So I use minimal amount of effort and tools. This one was an example of cutting it and splitting it down the middle. And the other one, this is the spindle created by splitting one big piece down the middle and then squaring it up. That's more square. Squaring it up and then carving it into a smaller spindle. I've done several of these for you